This is mainstream, and I don't hear red pillars talking about this. I don't hear MGTOW talking about this. And that's why I wanted to highlight this, is like, what are you not aware? Like, there's some new like weapon, like a new drone weapon that's being used. Like, why are men not aware of these forms of weaponization? They need to be aware of words like weaponized incompetence. Like the cowering slobs they are, they hide their sexism in the language of faux equality. Quote, it's not that I think you should do all the work. We just have different standards.
The female standard that is often demanded of the husband is not demanded because it is practical. There is no reason I actually need to fold all of the kids' clothes.
Yeah, Malcolm's like, are they going to get sick?
That is like the husband. I'll explain the male version of this: demanding sex constantly from the wife, and the wife being like, well, you know,
like, you don't need that to survive. You
don't need that much sex or that kinky of sex in those ways.
Yeah.
And the husband's like, well, that's just what I expect.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
Would you like to know more?
God. No, I'm afraid of botching the openings because you're going to just use all of it anyway. But here I go.
You know, I'm going to use that part right there. You just said, now I'm afraid of botching the openings.
You're the worst. I hate you so much. You're the worst. Okay. Oh. Hello, Malcolm. I'm so excited to be speaking with you today because I'm going to go over how feminists radicalize wives against their husbands. This is a conspiracy. It is getting worse, and there is no escape. So if you're a man, if you ever plan on marrying a woman with a vagine, you need to arm yourself. You need to be ready. You need to be prepared. So I'm going to walk you through the primary. I think
hold on. I find this topic really interesting because it's something that you clearly see. We had a fan gift us a subscription to a feminist blog for feminists.
Not a fan, man, a family friend and someone I deeply admire. We're not going to name her because what if she's friends with this author? But thank you.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're friends with the author. But anyway, so family friend gives us a subscription for us to look into of what it is like to read these deep feminist mother blog. It was horrifying. And you could see who is in it, because I've heard from so many people online or my friends, is I was a perfectly good husband. I was dating a perfectly reasonable person. And then she became convinced of all of these weird feminist ideas that like normal life was abusive. And something that we will get into in this, because it's something that she told me this morning. She's like, Malcolm, reading this blog, if I bought into this, I could find a way to hate you on every single one of the issues.
Oh, yeah, every issue I am going to share. I could, despite Malcolm being an above and beyond husband who does more work, who just like constantly floors me and is objectively incredible as a partner, I could make him a villain under any of these narratives. I could come up with copious examples. And if I chose to frame him in one of these negative lights, I could make him look like a complete monster. So let me get into it though, because let's just break it down and make this really compact for people so that they can actually like go through all of this and really prepare themselves. The 5 main ways that I see feminists poisoning women against their husbands or just women against the idea of marriage or dating men at all is: 1, they reframe things that wives and mothers typically prefer to do and enjoy doing as things that they're forced to do and things that they resent, which is really annoying. They promote cognitive load discourse. We'll get into that, along with married single mom discourse, which is related but still different and new. And they also just reframe innocuous actions by men as being insidious, and also just sort of reframe like. And
you're going to unpack all of these, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think a big one is that they are extremely, like, the double standard that they establish is insane. So I'll just start with that, using an example from this Substack that was shared with us by our friend, which is not just any random feminist Substack. So this is a Substack called Liberating Motherhood. It's by Zon Villines, she's the number 7 health and wellness writer on Substack with over 30,000 subscribers, many of which are paid.
30,000. This is a popular, because I read through this Substack and it was pure relationship poison.
Yeah. This is just to give you, like, this is not obscure, random, like red pill forum, like Return of Men. I don't even know if they have anywhere close to that level of engagement. Return
of Kings is what you're saying.
Return of Kings. It's been a while.
We wrote a post for them once, by the way.
Oh yeah, that was a lifetime ago. I'm sure that there's some new red pill thing, but I mean, people talk about like, oh, red pill and MGTOW. There's like the radicalized anti-man movement is also big. And I'm just trying to point out number 7 health and wellness writer on Substack. And just to point out sort of the double standard that's here, on one of her wedding anniversaries, Zon Villines summarized green flags from her husband, because she is married to a man, which is incredible to me.
This man's life must be a living hell. But continue.
I don't want to live his life.
Note, I removed a section here about the green flag she saw in her husband because I wanted to get to the meat of specifically how feminists turn wives against their husbands and less focus on just what hypocrites they are. Both you and I know they're hypocrites. The reason you're here is to learn how to fight against them and the new tactics they're using.
So let's go just point by point into the top ways that women are radicalizing wives against their husbands. And let's go into, I'm going to use some of the posts that are written by Zon Villines because they're great. I'll also go to some larger examples, but she just so well articulates many of these points. And other feminists who I followed have referred to her work, even had her on as interviews. And they're like, oh, she's better.
Who is she? Zon
Villines. She's the number 7 health.
Okay, so it's the writer of this. Okay,
yes,
great.
The author of this Substack. I'm going to use a lot of her articles to illustrate things, but these are larger points that are really common, and I'll also demonstrate that as well. But she has a really great example of my first zone of female radicalization against wives, which is just reframing preferences as hated obligations. So you remember that episode we did where we went through that survey of male and female household chore and family chore preferences, right?
Yes, that showed like females prefer, cooking food and being in the kitchen and house cleaning, and men prefer, outdoor work and mowing the lawn and taking out trash, etc. Yes.
Yeah, this research, it was very inconvenient from like a feminist perspective because it asked men and women both what they enjoyed doing more and what they anticipated doing more time doing. And it was just super clear that men and women enjoy different things. And as a surprise to nobody, spend more time doing the things they enjoy more. But no, many of these feminists are reframing the things that women enjoy doing and would like to do and prefer to spend more time doing as hated obligations. So one of Zon Villines' Substack posts under Liberating Motherhood is called the Dad Privilege Checklist, which does exactly this. It fosters resentment by framing tasks women do because they prefer to be the ones who do them as tasks that are shoved upon them. So she just includes this checklist that I think men are supposed to read to like understand their unseen privilege. Okay. So here's just a small excerpt that I just copied and pasted because I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they include, I do not help my children write thank you notes or send presents to relatives, yet they still get sent. I have never planned birthday party games. I have never decorated for a birthday party. My children attend summer camp or other summer activities, but I do not research these camps or registered my child in them. I do not pack my children for a trip, but they always have clothes.
This is a trap. If your wife is reading stuff like this, she's going to end up hating most husbands because most husbands don't do that stuff because a lot of that stuff doesn't need to be done. Except for the
like I send the thank you notes. I get the birthday presents. I do the packing for the trips, but it's because I like being in control of those things.
Right. But the idea that you would reframe an otherwise good because
even me reading this, there's like a little part in my head that's like, oh, wait, like how dare I be burdened with these? I was supposed to have help with these? You mean I didn't have to do this all by myself? Like they make it seem like it's something that I wasn't supposed to enjoy in the first place.
Yeah, well, and I would have also said that none of these things are things that needed to happen except for the packing for trips, right? And the packing for trips I would have done. I just wouldn't have folded everything the way that you do and stuff like that. And that's why the women do it, because they don't want it all thrown in a bag. And if they didn't care if it was thrown into a bag, the husband would be doing it. And everybody.
When we went on that, I think it was the trip, like a very romantic early trip we had where we went to a really fancy hotel and you literally brought all your clothes in a trash bag and we're walking.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Your Delhi Square at the Exclusive Resorts Hotel. And here I am with my like suitcase and my little fascinator and my coat.
I brought all my clothes in a trash bag because I didn't want to buy
Walking, carrying this trash bag behind you.
But that is how men approach this. So it's the same as the thank you. You don't need thank you notes. No one expects a thank you note, right?
But it makes a difference. It shows that you really do acknowledge, you know, like how many times have we given people a gift and just wondered if they ever even received it?
Not to men, to birthday. If you talk about like birthday activities as well, for example, like kids don't need birthday parties. They plan their own. Our family, we don't do birthday parties. If a kid wants a birthday party, they can do their own, you know? That's not
if they ask for one. Like Octavian might want a Nerf gun party. And if so, we would do it. But like,
yeah, we'll put one together if they like ask for one. But I put the planning on him, right? Like, I think that that's something kids should learn how to do. Why are you doing this for your kid, you weirdo? Like, you know, if you have like 7 or 8 kids, like a reasonable number, and you're not at some like piddling like 2 or 3 kids, you know, when you can't do these giant birthdays over and over.
But women, no, here's the thing though, and this goes back to that survey that we'd covered in a separate episode. When it came to things like holidays and parties and stuff, women really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Like they're not doing it because they have to.
Well, I mean, you do the holiday decorations more than I do.
Yeah, but they like the average woman likes doing this kind of thing, and that's the issue, is that this makes them think that they should present it, which is just, I mean, first that makes women miserable for no reason. It turns their hobbies into something
fascinating about this. Before we go further, is there isn't the male equivalent. Like a magazine, even if I'm looking at like manosphere stuff, when I look at manosphere stuff, it isn't like a bunch of ways that my wife isn't living up to expectations that are like stuff that average women do. It's typically like a bunch of ways that I'm supposed to act towards my wife that are douchey and would make most women hate you. No, I mean, like, that's why that content is toxic. This is very different. There is no male equivalent to trying to get men to reframe normal gendered behavioral differences as toxic.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Well, I think it's that women want a reason to hate their husband. I think women want to feel, and we've talked about this in other episodes. I don't know.
I think women, I think the average normal reasonable person wants to love who they're with and be happy. And I don't know what this is. I don't think it's feminism.
No. I'm gonna push back. You can go to our episode on dystopias, like teen dystopias.
Yeah.
And that women read these teen dystopias because they crave the dystopia. They live in worlds that are too good. And the female brain sort of like short circuits, especially during their adolescence, if they live in an environment without enough active threats. And so they begin to reframe themselves.
Oh, so you think this patriarchy / men evil thing is a God, I need a threat. And then like,
God, I need a threat.
There's a man sitting over there and it's like, there's the threat. Okay.
Yeah, the person you interact with most in your life, reframe them as a threat and you'll feel good. Because men don't do this. They don't read a bunch of stuff that reframes normal things as. And if you look at these dystopias that we've talked about, it's about women wanting to live in a fantasy where their life is harder and more oppressive. And where, you know, there's some outside sort of fascist force that's controlling everything that they do, and where they're different and unique and special, and 3 guys like them. And that's the utopia. As to where this comes from, if you look throughout human history, women were much more likely to be in environments that were actually structurally oppressive of them, where they were actually treated as an underclass to such an extent where if they were aware of this or didn't lean into it, they would be, you know, the best case, lose access to reproductive partners, you know, be seen as low status, and so people didn't marry them and didn't reproduce with them, or worst case, just been killed. So there was an active pressure for most of human history that differentially rewarded women versus men who saw the world as structured against them and accepted that. And I think that when they reach adulthood as well, some women are just like, where is my threat? Where is the oppressor? And if there isn't an oppressor, I will manufacture one.
That can help explain this, because I'm just like, there's no one wins from this. Men don't win. Women in good marriages don't win. Okay. Anyway, let's move on to number 2, because cognitive load discourse, which is the next thing that is really big, is just so underrated. So this even shows up on Google Ngram Viewer. So I'm gonna show you on WhatsApp an image of it because I just was like, whoa. Google Ngram Viewer is a little bit different from Google Trends because we're talking about what's showing up in published content rather than just Google searches.
Cognitive load, it's exploded.
It has exploded since like the
2000s.
2000s, essentially. It's just like this there's a whole new like out of nowhere concept. And what it basically has to do with is it has to do with it's sometimes referred to as mental load too. So the mental load refers to the often invisible cognitive and emotional labor involved in managing a household and family life which disproportionately falls on women. This includes planning, organizing, anticipating needs, and delegating tasks, leading to stress and potential burnout. It's the thinking work behind the scenes that keeps everything running smoothly. And basically, it's you know what you did on steroids. So I think most men know the you know what you did trope, where like
where the
a woman is
like,
mad at a man and the man's like,
right.
what did I do? And she's like, you know what I did. And there's this expectation that's very toxic that men are supposed to somehow read women's minds and anticipate their needs and then have not offended them or done whatever it is that they needed without knowing. And I just want to show, like, this is not something that just, is showing up on feminists' blogs. I'm showing you, here is a Washington Post article. So like mainstream publication, okay? And it's titled, "Being CEO of the Household is Weighing Women Down." Here's an excerpt from it.
Women still tend to handle the cognitive labor of households, anticipating everyone's needs, planning, organizing, scheduling, and more.
Yeah. And the author writes, "When I found myself thoroughly burned out 7 months into parenthood, I first thought I needed to change my attitude and get better organized. My husband and I, both immigrants with full-time work, were lucky to have family members come from overseas to help with our baby during the first year of his life. So a lot of childcare and light housework were taken care of. And yet this ceaseless anticipating of everyone's needs, identifying options and filling them, planning, organizing, scheduling, monitoring progress, and everything else that goes into managing a household, what is now called cognitive labor, left me depleted. My husband promised me he would try to help, but didn't."
So I want to be clear here and reframe this so people can understand what's really being complained about.
Mm-hmm.
They are complaining about, and this is what's said in this very title of Cognitive Labor of Households, which is planning, organizing, and scheduling, i.e. controlling your partner's life and daily schedule. They are saying, I have too much control over my husband's life.
Right?
That is a burden.
Because like I feel like these things are, I would like to have this control.
Isn't empowerment as oppression? It's showing that, well, one, like the way you fix what is making women like this unhappy is not by giving them more agency. It's not by giving them more power, because apparently the very agency and power they have over the family are the source of their distress and are the tools that they are using. Because keep in mind, you're not just talking about these individuals, you're talking about the individuals who they influence with this. They take a woman who reads this, who, because her husband is open to progressive ideals and open to gender egalitarianism, has said, hey, let's have an equal relationship, or let's even have a relationship where, like with our family, I say I wake up in the morning and I know what I'm doing that day because my wife has put it on my calendar. And that is not me having control over my wife. That is my wife having control over me, right? That is me being open to an area of gender egalitarianism where I'm like, she's just better at in the moment sort of schedule management. But in addition to that, she prefers it. She doesn't like me managing her schedule.
Well, I don't know though. So what's emerging though, and what you're pointing to here is something that I am just connecting now, because I just watched my second YouTube video today on this princess treatment woman who's like on TikTok and an influencer. And she's like some kind of Christian woman who's been trying to be an influencer for 10 years. And finally she kicked off because she has gotten really open about the fact she gets the princess treatment from her husband. And examples of clips from her that have gone viral are clips of her talking about how, her husband puts her shoes on. And when they go to restaurants, she doesn't like to talk to the hostess or the waiter. Like when the waiter asks her what she wants to order, she just looks to her husband and makes sure that her husband orders for her, and doesn't want the staff to talk to her. She wants her husband to talk for her. And
By the way, I don't know if you know this, but that is actually traditional manners. That's the way I was taught growing
No,
up.
it 100% is traditional manners, but like she frames it more as just like,
Well, no, I understand that within a modern context, but just so people know, if you grew up in the South like I did, or I guess in any region
you
where
absolutely order for the woman. Yeah.
I was
100%.
taught that you're supposed to always say the lady would like, and then you order for the woman, and then you order for yourself. That is the way that you do the order. Anyway, continue.
Absolutely. So that is absolutely true. And I think what's really interesting about the discourse around her and other influencers who typically from a more Christian perspective now, but of course the liberal media that's covering this is like, oh, it's a BDSM thing, I think people find this offensive. Liberal women find this offensive because many of them are sort of stuck in this cognitive load discourse and are seeing all the responsibilities they've taken on as now, even though they prefer to have this control, now they've been trained to think that the control is toxic and terrible and they resent having it. And then they have this weird pull where they see these like super trad relationships and they're like, oh, that's so offensive and evil, but like, oh, like I like you can't have it both ways, right? Like they don't want their husband to anticipate their needs, but they have to also defenestrate the woman whose husband anticipates her needs.
No, they want to hate both. They want to, and this is what I was telling you, they are looking for ways to recontextualize their lives as oppressed. They would see their life as oppressed if they were the princess. They would see their life as oppressed if they are the woman who gets to make their husband's schedule. Yeah. The goal is, and this is why this is so dangerous, because you don't know if your wife is reading this or whatever. It's to put in front of a woman things that reframe choices that you gave her because it was what she wanted in the moment, as i.e., I don't like it when you disrupt my schedule. I don't like it when you book things for me. I like to have control over these things. Yeah. To reframe these kindnesses you've done for them
as oppression.
As oppression.
Well, and actually, no. So here's a great example. There's another BBC article I just shared. Like I shared a screenshot with you on WhatsApp called "The Hidden Load: How Thinking of Everything Holds Moms Back." And this article goes so far as to present the concept of cognitive load as a sign that gender equality is in remission. So here's what they say. An increasing body of research indicates that for household responsibilities, women perform far more cognitive and emotional labor than men. Understanding why could help explain why gender equality has not only stalled, but is going backwards, despite being more discussed than ever. And a broader understanding of this behind-the-scenes labor could help couples redistribute the work more equally, something that, while initially difficult, could play a significant role in helping mothers lighten their load. So they're actively saying here that feminism is sliding back, and cognitive load is proof of that. But let's go to.
Well, hold on. I actually want to, raise a flag here to be like the women who watch this podcast. Be aware of content like this when you see.
Yeah, because this is like it's subtle. Like you might read some of it and be like, well, whatever. Like sometimes it slips in.
Reasonable, right? But what this inexorably does is make you hate any relationship.
Yeah,
because there
actually, so here's how I first started consuming it. Was like it came up in the concept of like hot gossip, like, oh, this relationship gone sideways, and then like that's how they get you. Like first you just watch to watch a dumpster fire, and then suddenly you're being steeped in this discourse, this radicalizing discourse.
Continue.
So sort of like a subset, I would say, of cognitive load discourse, like another sort of sub-trend within it is what you can call the married single mother discourse. And so here I'm showing you Google Trends.
And I would, oh gosh, what is this?
This is the married single mother concept. A married single mother is a woman who is legally married but feels like a single parent due to her husband's lack of involvement in household and childcare responsibilities. This can result in her managing the majority of parenting and domestic duties alone, leading to increased stress and potential resentment. This is sometimes presented in social media as like women being described as having 3 children because her husband is like the 3rd child and they have 2 kids together. Yeah. So it's like framed differently in different videos, but it's showing up a lot more. And I wanted to highlight this subset of the cognitive load discourse because it is another really big thing. And women are being more than unsubtly led to see the concept of a husband as another dependent that makes their lives worse. So this also comes like, there's parents.com Feminist.com article that I can read a little bit from that helps to also give you some of the red flag vocabulary to look
Go
for
for
here.
it.
I just sent you a screenshot so you can see this is real. Like, these are mainstream publications. The article's called "What is a Married Single Mom?" from the article,
which is a conservative publication.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm also going to read from that, but here's the screenshot
okay.
for the parents.com. Yeah. New York Post. I'm also going to read you a quote from, because yeah, again, these are mainstream publications that are very, like, a lot of people are reading. This is normalized discourse, and men need to be aware of it, because I think men really aren't paying attention to it. Like, this is,
No, they don't know that their wives are being exposed to these sorts of articles.
Yeah. So parents.com, What is a Married Single Mom? Reads part of it: weaponized incompetence, default parent, mental load, and invisible load. These phrases have entered the parenting conversation over the past few years, particularly on social media. They may sound new, buzzy, and, at least in the case of weaponized incompetence, inflammatory. They all serve the same purpose: to point out that one parent, usually the woman in a heterosexual relationship, often ends up with more responsibilities, seen or unseen. Here's a new one for you: married single mom. The phrase emerged in discussions around a viral video of a mom exiting her car with a handful of stuff and her 2 children. She essentially falls onto her toddler while trying to remove her younger child from the car. Meanwhile, a man is standing there with a phone in his hand, doing nothing to help. And then from the New York Post article, it's titled "Worrying Married Single Moms Trend Shows That Modern Relationships Are Not Working."
By the way, I have to say to people, the image on the parents article that says, "What is a married single mom?" What it is an image of a black mom serving food to 2 black children while a white dad, I guess stepdad maybe, is in the background clearly working to support the family.
It's like he's on like an account.
He's not like playing video games or something. He has like a bunch of
it looks like he's paying bills.
Yes.
Do you want to be the one who's like, she's literally just putting jam on toast? This is not a complicated
There seems to be the
breakfast.
implication here as well that he married into and is now supporting this family while the wife is not working. He is working and supporting them, and he's the bad guy.
Well, that's like one of these overlying themes here is the double standard. Is that, like, okay, well, women are responsible for anticipating people's emotional needs and sending thank you notes, but we don't talk about this sort of default of like, well, when it comes down to it, the man's expected to provide the money. When it comes down to it, if there's a fire, the man's expected to run into the burning house to get the parakeet, because God forbid the parakeet burn. Or, the man's expected to defend the house. Are you
thinking of a specific instance here? Like, what does that come from?
No, it's just like, when it comes to like physical danger, when it comes to financial security, all these things, men have the cognitive load. Men are the front lines, and we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the fact, like, there are people in our lives who are the sole breadwinners for their families, and I'm sure their wives, who in many cases, they're stay-at-home wives, they don't have to worry about the finances, and yeah, they have the cognitive load of all the mothering and parenting and whatever. Mm-hmm. But their husbands also have the cognitive load of, oh my God, if I lose my job, like, everyone's depending on me, and we've seen that weigh on men. And just there, everyone has a cognitive load. There are absolutely dead weights that are both men and women in relationships. But on average, in a typical functional marriage, everyone has a cognitive load.
Well, it's this restructuring of, I have responsibilities. How dare I have responsibilities?
Yeah,
I have things I'm supposed to do as myself. I have things I'm supposed to now. It's not that there are not men who are capable of just not picking up any aspect of a relationship. And I do feel that
but there are women who do that too.
There are women who do that too, but I will say that, like, when I hear about the normalization, even in the pronatalist community, of women doing stuff that I see as deeply unfair. Like, I know of one pronatalist where the husband works and makes money for the family and supports the family, and the wife is a stay-at-home wife, and she said, I won't go above 4 kids till you start helping with childcare. And it's like, oh, you start helping out more around the house. You start helping out more around my duties. It's like, you do nothing but childcare. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and he conceded to this, right? Like, seeing it as a thing to concede to. And I'm like, this is deeply unfair, and it is really messed up that your wife normalized to this. I think they only that her core thing in life was the production and care of children. And yet that is too much for her. That is, no, you also need to not just care for me. It reminds me of,
you've got to swim. Kick with your legs. I can't kick. Yes, you can. I can't kick. You just have to save me. I need your help. No, you just have to save me. Kyle, no.
Well, what bothers me even more is we know of couples who got married, planned on having 4 or 5 kids. Like that was the understanding. The stay-at-home wife and mother who they send their kids in this. I'm thinking of one case where they send their kids to private school and they have nannies and babysitters.
And they only got to 3 kids and they stopped.
Yeah. And the husband wanted more, and the wife was just like, well, 3 kids is too much for me. Even though the kids,
even though they had they had a staff, they had a night nurse, they had preschools, like nice preschools and everything.
Yeah, so it goes both ways. I mean, there are dead weights absolutely on both ways. And I know women who absolutely have been married single moms whose husbands are like, oh, I'm suffering with mental health problems, like my anxiety, I can't work, I can't do anything.
There are like progressive husbands who do that BS. Like
more often than not, yeah, honestly.
Yeah, because they normalize to this sort of therapy culture. But the point I'm making here is any guy, no matter how good, can be framed as within 100%. Any situation.
Yeah, I could take any of these, and if I wanted to cherry pick data, I could make you out to be the worst. Also, if you wanted to cherry pick, red pillar data, you could totally make me out to be the worst.
Oh yeah. So. Well, actually, I don't know. You don't do anything wrong. But
it's so sweet to me. But you're wrong.
I don't know.
Walt, Malcolm. I think that the easiest thing you can always do is just like, well, obviously, I'm gonna divorce rape you eventually. So
of course, so it's what you're going to do in the future, right?
Yeah, it's because that's I'm just, this is the buildup. I'm just really getting like all my hooks in you, so that when I eventually tear you apart, it's as devastating as possible. Anyway, I just
Walt. Yeah, I said this morning, you're the scorpion, and from the Scorpion and the Frog analogy.
It's my nature. Yes.
Yeah, it's your nature. Yeah.
So from the NY Post article, just to show how pervasive this is, they quote one Miss Dober, who works at Melbourne's Enriching Lives Psychology Clinic, and said more often couples are, quote, evaluating division of household chores, end quote, in response to a huge uptake in conversations as women, quote, understand that each person in the household contributes to the mess of the life. Therefore, they should be able to take responsibility and participate in the upkeep of the home or their life together, end quote. So this is showing up in couples counseling. This is showing up in therapy culture. This is commercially a thing. This is an Ngram viewer. This is in Google Trends. This is showing up in NY Post, Washington Post, Parents.com, BBC. Like, this is mainstream. And I don't hear red pillars talking about this. I don't hear MGTOW talking about this. And that's why I wanted to highlight this, is like, what are you not aware? Like, you need to know, like, let's say that like there's some new like weapon, like a new drone weapon that's being used. We're talking about like the new forms of warfare that are coming. Like, why are men not aware of these forms of weaponization? They need to be aware of words like weaponized incompetence. Like this is...
Wait, what does weaponized incompetence mean? Give me this word.
Well, it's part of the single Mary Mom discourse of men just being like, oh, I didn't know how to fold the clothes. Like, just like, if I were to use this against you, it'd be like, well, the fact that you don't put away dishes the way I like, or the fact that you don't clean up the way I like, isn't that you don't know how to. It's that you are actively choosing to not know how to
weaponize
to subjugate me. Right, to make me do it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Okay.
That actually shows up in the next. So my final section of this weaponization is framing normal behavior as toxic, and weaponized incompetence is actually a great example of this. And I'm going to go back to our Liberating Motherhood, 7th Health and Wellness Substack blog for some examples of this, because Zon Villines, the author, is just so good at eloquently distilling these radicalized, hateful toward men feminist points. Okay. So one example that she presents is she takes men's observation that women sometimes overreact and frames it as toxic in one of her Substack posts titled, "You're overreacting, the magic words patriarchy uses to justify everything."
But women do overreact. Are we supposed to pretend that they don't?
Well, and that's the thing is here's an example. Like I would be materially and mentally worse off if I didn't have you walk me back from things. And I know that I overreact. Like, there was just this instance the other day where I was like literally up all night and like having actual bad dreams about a bit of a family conflict that's going on. And I told you like what I was going to plan on do about it because I was like really stressing out about it. And you're like, Simone, just pay this person off and like just deal with it. It's not worth it for you to try to fight back against this. And like you showed me that I was overreacting. You're like, just deal with it in this way. You gave me a very simple solution. And guess what? I'm not having bad dreams about it anymore. I'm not losing sleep over it anymore because I was overreacting. So not only is it yet do women, even me with my like, well, maybe it's because I'm pregnant. Maybe I have more of a female hormonal profile now, but like even me who like normally needs to take the same amount of estrogen as a trans woman to be feminine, like I overreact and I'm not the most feminine person. So like,
I don't think that this is overreaction. I just think that you overly cue to like emotional issues and wanting to solve them. And I'm just like, we don't need to solve this. Stop thinking about it.
Well, that's one example of this. But as Zon Villines put it, quote, one of the best ways to assess whether a man wants to harm you is how he reacts when you critique his behavior. If he apologizes and makes amends, then his harmful behavior was unintentional. If he tells you,
yeah.
If he tells you you're overreacting, it's because he knows his behavior is indefensible. He's seeking to escape accountability by gaslighting you. There is no epidemic of women overreacting. What we do have is an epidemic of women underreacting, continuing to pursue heterosexual relationships with men, making excuses for the men in their lives, assuming they can disrupt abuse with the right communication strategy.
Where is this from? Which article is this from?
This is from Liberating Motherhood, titled "You're Overreacting, the Magic Words Patriarchy Uses to Justify Everything." She ends that with, "You don't need to worry about overreacting," which is just so not true. I think especially for women, because I do think that women, and I think I'm part of this, overreact.
How can you be so blind to your own nature to not know that women overreact more than men? Like, I'm actually kind of shocked by this. The degree to which...
She actually, in the same article, argues that men overreact more than women and more violently and are a violent threat to women.
And not only that, I remember another one of her things was she was talking about like signs that your husband is awful. And she's like, he goes, well, are you
in
on
which
your
post?
period?
That's like all of them.
No, but the one about like, are you on your period, right? Like, are you, just trying to understand it. They need to be acting with special care around you. And then of course, this is a sign of abuse. And it's like, yeah, but women do act differently during that.
The problem is, there's abundant academic research that shows shifts in female behavior based on their
that isn't him attacking you. That is him asking an informative question that should inform how both of you react to the moment, right? Like,
well, and even if women's cycles didn't lead to hormonal behavioral changes, which are well documented, literally the presence of menstrual cramps that many women experience would be enough to cause them to react in a certain way. Like if any person on a monthly basis endured a non-trivial amount of discomfort enough that was like interrupting to them, they would start like when you're in pain, you react kind of in a worse way, because you just have less, you fewer spoons to spend, like you don't have the patience for it because you're in pain. So like, it's not unreasonable to say that women.
No, but what I find fascinating about this blog is it almost feels like it was designed by somebody who sat down and was like, how can I convince, and this is one of the biggest blogs on Substack, right? How can I convince women to hate their husbands?
Well, I think what she found, and that you see this a lot with the fresh and fit, just pearly things, like that kind of sphere online, is there's this group of people that just like really done with women. And I think a lot of the people who read her blog, when you look at the comments, actually have been or are in pretty suboptimal relationships. They've made bad decisions with the men they've chosen or whatever. And they come in and they really don't like their husbands. And I think she found the market.
I disagree. I think a lot of these people actually start liking their husbands. I think.
Well, no, you don't marry someone because you hate them. Of course, they all started out liking their husband.
Right. But I think that the goal of a lot of this is to drive people into hating their husbands when they didn't to begin with. And I think that so many husbands who are good husbands and so many wives who are good wives don't realize how much a perfectly good and normal relationship can be destroyed by consuming content like this. And a lot of husbands think, well, my life is like a rational human. And you don't understand that even somebody like Simone can find lines within this sort of stuff seductive. You know, you can read this and be like, oh, well, you know, should Malcolm be packing for trips? And if you actually thought through it, you'd be like, oh my God, I would beat him with a stick if he tried to pack for a trip. But it gets into your head and you're like, well, I guess you're right. I do. And I guess I am doing a lot around the house. Like, when was the last time he did cards? And I'm sure if you look at her post around like
Malcolm, I don't think you've ever, like, aside from some kindergarten teacher signing you, like, I don't think you've ever written a
no, I wouldn't, because
I'm
a fucking I'm a heterosexual man, and there are a few things in this world, like women do not want men who write cards. They do not want to. They may conceptually want those men. That is not the characters they choose to romance in games where they can romance multiple characters. It is not the card for gifts writers. And so I think a lot of this is just like a delusion, you know what I mean? But it's a sick delusion because it destroys marriages. It destroys families. And it's something that to get at, I think, is worth going through. And I love how you broke this into distinct categories. Going through these categories and talking through them with your partners so that they know to be on the lookout for content that tries to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, you know, a similar thing exists with cults in general, right? Like, when you know that love bombing is a cult tactic and you can identify it and say, this is love bombing, this is separating you from your loved ones and trust network, this is, you know, like all of that, it makes it a lot easier to deprogram someone. But I wanted to go through a couple more examples before we get to the deprogramming section, which we absolutely are going to include. So that's obviously super important. But I just like there's so many things that are reframed as toxic that I think are insane. So because here's one. So when I talk with reporters about why women end up doing more parenting than they should, I talk about men and women having different standards and how, like, a lot of women just aren't comfortable having their husband like watch the kids for the afternoon or whatever, because they know that if their husband watches the kids, they're going to eat a lot of candy and be running around naked, and there's going to be a bit of a mess, right? And like, I'm cool with that.
Why do you need to put clothes on the kids every day, right? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
But this is reframed by Zon Villines as toxic. In her blog post, we just have different standards, the weapons sexist men use. And in this, she writes, we just have different standards. Do you? Or is that he doesn't have do you? Or is it that he doesn't have to have standards? Because you do all the work.
Just a quick note before you continue here. They're literally like looking at the arguments where people are like, you're being a psycho right now. You're trying to get women to hate their husbands. And they're like, yeah, we are trying to get them to hate our husbands. Let's go.
Yeah, get out of my way.
Get out of my way.
She writes, one of the big changes our generation has seen is that it's no longer socially acceptable to say, I actually think my wife should do all the parenting and housework because she's a woman and that's her role. And you definitely can't say, I deserve to relax at the end of my day and my wife doesn't, because women's needs just don't matter as much and women's work doesn't count, even when it's paid work. In many ways, it's easier to confront the sexist men when they say poop like this. Instead, like the cowering slobs they are, they hide their sexism in the language of faux equality. Quote, it's not that I think you should do all the work. We just have different standards. So that's like the theme of her post, is that like she's taking this thing where I'm like, oh yeah, men and women do have different, like you and I have very different standards. And, you know, I do certain things because I'd rather have them be done my way. And she's framing that
as... I should point out here that the different standards, and this is what she's missing here, the female standard that is often demanded of the husband is not demanded because it is practical. There is no reason I actually need to fold all of the kids' clothes.
Yeah, Malcolm's like, are they going to get sick?
No, fine. Look at the house and cleaning. I'm like, is somebody going to get sick? Why are we don't have guests coming over? Why are you doing this? You know, that is a personal preference choice on behalf of the woman. That is not a no. It's
true.
It's a big thing if when a man says we have different standards, and it's because he's just not actually doing the job to the degree that
and
the
like
job
the kids
is necessary.
are hurting for something. Yeah.
Right. When he says we have different standards, and what he means is you demand a standard of this that has no actual utility to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
That is like the husband. I'll explain the male version of this: demanding sex constantly from the wife, and the wife being like, well, you know,
Like,
I just
you don't need that to survive. You
don't need that much sex or that kinky of sex in those ways.
Yeah.
And the husband's like, well, that's just what I expect.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
Doing when she tries to get the husband to clean the house every single day in a way that is not of any utility to the family's health and safety.
That's a really good. Yeah. I think that's a great equivalent, because she also talks a lot about sex in this blog. I'm not getting into it.
I'm sure it's super toxic. Is it just like you should never have to have sex whenever a guy exudes?
Yeah, like one of her statements and there's so many, is that scheduled sex is rape. That if I were like, hey, Malcolm, like, it's really like with all the kids and stuff, we should just schedule time so that we actually make time for intimacy, because otherwise we're just not going to get around to it. That would be
great for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway,
actual psycho this person is.
I know, but this is why our good friend recommended this Substack to us. Thank you. I would name you, but I don't know if you know her or something, so I don't want to put you on the spot. So she even goes to frame the very institution of marriage in which she participates for 12 plus years as toxic. In the Liberating Motherhood blog post, Is Marriage Good for Women? This is actually like a redux of an earlier viral post that she did on marriage. I'm just going to read a very short bit from it, but she says, imagine if we told girls the truth. Imagine if we admitted to them that there is a single choice in life that will, on average, shorten women's life expectancy, undermine their ability to parent their children effectively, greatly increase the risk of their children being exposed to violence and in all other forms of abuse, lower women's earning power, erode their mental health, make them less happy over the long term, weaken women's relationship with family and friends, erode women's libido, reduce the quality of a woman's sex life, immediately increase household labor, increase risk of and exposure to abuse and violence, elevate risk of depression, anxiety, and trauma. And that choice is cisgender heterosexual marriage.
Oh my God.
And this is why I should have married a chick, Malcolm. You're ruining me.
By the way, just so people know, we've done another episode on one of our spiciest episodes is who's really at fault for abuse in marriages, because what we look at is, if you look at the abuse rates in cisgendered marriages, and it's the same with divorce rates as well, by the way, divorce rates in cisgender marriages, and then you look at, okay, well, what happens if we take out one of the genders and you go to gay marriages? You have way lower divorce rates than in cisgender marriages.
Mm-hmm.
You have lower abuse rates. You go to lesbian marriages, you have a way higher divorce rates and way higher abuse rates.
So screwed up. I don't get it. Because also, like, all the lesbian couples we see are so sweet, and like that we know also are great. Like, so I grew up around one that was actually very rocky, and they did get divorced, and the fights were scary and loud.
Apparently 76% of lesbians get divorced and 23% of gay men get divorced. Sorry, I misstated the data here a bit. What I meant to say was, of gay people who get divorced in any given year, around 76% will be lesbians and 23% will be gay men. So gay men, we need to do an episode on like how wholesome gay men are in their relationships.
Well, come on, no, the wholesome lesbians we saw at Trader Joe's yesterday, they were so sweet.
They were sweet.
I wanted to take them home. Yeah, like they just like, I'm not saying they're all bad.
No,
I'm just saying.
No. The lesbians are not abusive because they're lesbians. They do not get divorced at higher rates because they're lesbians. This happens because they're women, and you've just doubled the number of women in a relationship.
Oh my God.
And so
right, if they were just sister wives, it would be fine.
Right, because they'd have a man. No, actually, what's really funny is if you go to countries, a lot of people are surprised at this. If you look at countries where you have, I think it was like the statistic I saw on like spousal beatings. And if you look at countries where like physical abuse of wives, where there are campaigns to allow it,
Okay.
Um,
Oh, the
a,
women support it. There was some
a lot of
African
these
country.
campaigns are led by
Yeah, where the women are like, someone needs to crack down here.
But hold on. They're within countries where men can marry multiple wives.
That
So
makes sense. Well, also, you know, in our
very much like
polyamory,
our kids, when one of our kids goes to me and he goes, Dad, because people think our kids, because they know that we do like light corporal punishment, that they fear corporal punishment. Our kids are the biggest advocates for corporal punishment you could imagine in our family. And one of our kids will come and he goes, Octavian just took X from me. You need to go bop Octavian. And I'm like, well, I really don't think what he did was that bad. He goes, no, like you need to bop him. And this is the way apparently like wives are when there's other wives in the picture.
Yeah. Although also someone commented on our polyamory podcast that they had some like a friend who married a woman from like the Philippines or something. And that woman was like, he needs to get another wife. Like, I want someone to help out with the housework and who I can gossip with about sex and stuff. Like, she's like, I don't know. I wonder how like realistic the female demand for polygamy is. That would be fun to look at.
But again,
someday.
I don't think that's the same as polyamory. If you want to marry,
But before we go through the de-radicalization, which is important, and we need to get to that, I want to point out that you can't even like Stockholm syndrome yourself as a man into this. Like, even if you want to be the perfect feminist man,
you'll never win.
Yeah. And in fact, in Liberating Motherhood, there is a post titled, "But I'm an ally and a feminist, How Men Weaponize Feminist Identities Against Women, the Weapons Abusive Men Use series." So this is an article that in which she goes over how like, oh, if a man says he's a feminist, he might just be,
no, might just really, it's a sign of abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, she says that like,
not that it's not. I do agree that men who say they're feminists are much more likely to be abusive, but
I think, yeah, well, and we see a lot of, like there's sort of this sneaky copulators thing kind of happens in those spaces.
I mean, that's why you have such high grape levels within these communities, which we've talked about before, because if you look at the reports of grape levels within like feminist communities, they're like stupidly high, like higher than they are in like war zones in like Africa and stuff like that. If you look at like American colleges, and it's like, okay, so there's clearly something wrong with the men that you're interacting with, or you're lying. We could say they're lying, but I actually don't know if that's 100%. And I actually think that they are in environments where the men who adopt quote unquote a feminist persona are much more likely to disregard women's sexual boundaries.
But I don't even think like she's not even talking about that. I mean, I think she mentions it a little bit, but what she talks about even more is like basically, if you're a man, you're part of the patriarchy, and the only way you're an actual feminist ally is if basically all you do is listen, and if the woman always wins the argument. And if that's how it is, then yes, you're a feminist. But if you ever dare to push back or invalidate a woman's,
if you're not in a 24/7 dom sub relationship with your wife,
if this isn't like reverse Gorian nonsense,
she means like basically you're a live-in slave to this woman. You are not feminist enough for her.
Yeah. So like the point is, nobody's safe. Malcolm, literally like the perfect husband, my like dream. I wanted to live alone forever. I hate all people. Like my default was so anti being with anyone. Like, you have to understand just how above and beyond amazing Malcolm actually is as a husband, because
and I think it's really important for people to know that like I barely beat my wife. It is like barely once every few days do I have to give her a spanking because she is not listening to my demand. I am a feminist. I forced her to make the money for the family as a feminist.
Because it's empowering, girl boss, etc. Yes.
That's how you know I'm a true feminist.
Yeah, an ally.
An ally.
Yeah. So, but like, okay, so I mean, just to show, like, whether you're dating women, whether you're married, that you need to just know this is something to which the women in your life they're being exposed to this. This is something serious that you need to anticipate and be aware of. And okay, let's say that someone's already steeped in this. You're hearing terms like weaponized incompetence. You're hearing terms like cognitive load. You're hearing terms like the mere fact that I have to ask you is such a mental burden. Like, you're not helping. Like, you should know, you should anticipate. There's so many viral social media examples of this. you need to be aware that that's already a sign that this woman has been radicalized and that she has internalized those narratives. And I have even been guilty at times of doing this to Malcolm, of like, oh, just asking you would be too much work. Like I've said things like that to him. So like even perfectly happy married couples can slip into this. So what do you do to de-radicalize someone and or inoculate them against it?
It's very easy. What you need to do is inject them with serum so that their brain becomes malleable, and then send them to
bring back lobotomies.
Lobotomy.
No, I think that the biggest thing is open discourse. Like a lot of the issues that I read about in Zon Villein's Liberating Motherhood Substack could be so easily resolved just by each party talking about what they wanted, what's bothering them, and what they can do to work it out. I think like having a relationship contract would be so useful. Like this is one of the things that was just so great that we did early in our relationship, where we're like, we're going to throw out social contracts. Because the problem with social contracts is, especially in a culture like ours, where everyone kind of has different priors they're growing up with, have a shared standard for everything. Because otherwise I'm going to think cheating is defined by this, and you're going to think cheating is defined by that, and these are totally not matched. And suddenly I think like, oh, you're watching porn, you're cheating on me, and you're like, wait a second, it's porn, what do you mean? Like it's when I have penetrative sex with a woman that I'm cheating. So like all these things, like you have to work out those standards. So I think having a relationship contract, and by that I mean like an active Google document where you go over potential points of conflict, which ours include everything from permitted interior house temperatures to what happens if a parent becomes sick and asks to move in. And it's better to talk about these things before they're real, because then they're too emotionally charged for you to actually talk about them in a reasonable way. Like, I think that's a really big one, is to just, because then like a woman can't accuse you of not knowing the standards of like, oh, you should have known. Right? You should have known that this was your expectation. Because what's happening, I think, with this radicalization is that feminists who hate men are literally shifting the default social contract. Because the default social contract before used to be a lot more compatible. It's like men knew that women would do this weird thing where they had to have personalized stationery and write thank you notes. And women knew that men would never do something like that because it's not something that men do.
Gay!
Yeah, but now this social contract has been shifted of how dare men not, buy personalized stationery and send thank you notes. And
well,
because
I actually remember, growing up, I knew somebody who did this, who wrote these stationery notes. Yeah, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're gay." Like they weren't gay, by the way. It's a family member. It's a family member.
They weren't. They weren't gay.
No, they're not gay. They're married. They've got kids now. They're not gay. And as far as I know, they've never done anything gay. But they would not just write like thank you letters and everything like that, but they tie bows on them and stuff and make them look really nice.
Oh my god, I love it.
You can guess which of my family members this was.
I have
and why I would be so hesitant to name them. But this is very much like I'm not saying that like obviously like it makes, but what I'm saying is it's just rare for men to want to do things like this.
And again, these are all averages, like that household chores thing. These are averages of like on average, men are going to be more into the outdoor housework and fixing stuff, and women are going to be more interested in decorating for the holidays. But there are always exceptions. There are those dudes who are like the Christmas guy and like they're obsessed, It's fine.
Right. And that's like, often when it's the Christmas guy, they're obsessed with like outdoor decorating. And,
or like the train sets.
And,
yeah. Well, and also like, where we deviated in that survey was that on average, men were more likely to do the financial management, which was even depicted in that parents.com photo in the article of the man paying the bills while the woman labors through breakfast by buttering toast.
It looked like he was doing work, not paying the bills, but
no, he was holding a piece of paper, and in front of it, like literally like an accounting software screen. So he was like, you just don't know what paying bills looks like, because I enjoy that more than you do, but I also do it in a really like autistic.
You also don't like my paper hands and stuff like that. Even though we don't have Bitcoin anymore, we still have a lot of crypto. But you were always like, I don't like that you're always stressing about this. Just buy and hold until we make a bunch of money.
Yeah, I have what is it called? Diamond hands.
Diamond hands, and then we got to a point where we're just like, okay, the risk of quantum is becoming too high at this point.
Yeah,
and so let's just get up. You see. I mean, we had a lot of money in that. We had like
we bought the Ford that we use was our Ethereum gains alone.
Yeah, we were gonna get as a license plate like gas fees, but the house we got was from gains. largely speaking, from an inheritance. If you
Oh, the
look at,
Bitcoin. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Which you got so mad at me when I put that all in Bitcoin.
Yeah, well,
You remember
okay,
how mad
so
you were?
hold on. This requires a bit of context. The reason I was so eager to sell a lot of our Bitcoin is I got an inheritance from, and it's the only inheritance I'm going to get from any of my family members, because my family had all their money stolen from them. It's a long story. $27 million stolen by this weird like accountant lady. You can look it up, like it's in the news. But I got a medium inheritance from my grandmother, and Simone takes it and puts it all in Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin goes down a bunch. And I'm really stressed. I'm like, this isn't what it was for, Simone. It wasn't for like gambling.
Yes, it was.
It's not gambling. You go, Bitcoin's going to do well. Trust me. And it ends up more than doubling from the position where she bought it at, and then we sold out. And
but also, yeah, I mean, like, to honor you, and then you got mad about that too, because then it went up from we sold it at like 71, and then it, of course, like went up to like 100. But like, then you got mad. Like, no, it's okay to sell before the peak gains, because
this is why you manage the finance, because you're not as susceptible to emotions as I am.
But anyway, so like there are deviations. You're absolutely right. But like, yeah, I think, when you negotiate these things in a marriage contract, when you now have to, social contracts have not only gone all over the place, but been systematically moved in a way that is designed to set up men for failure in relationships. Well, and women too, but like to demonize men in relationships. Therefore, as a man, if you do not extremely intentionally set up a relationship contract, you are setting yourself up to fail, like, period, in today's society. And I know it's annoying that you have to do that, but also, like, there was a guy from a film crew over this past weekend, and I was telling him about our relationship contract, because that's like a good spicy thing to include in news segments. And he was like, oh yeah, dude, like I had one with my ex-girlfriend. Like, this is not a weirdo thing. Like, we're weirdos. I get that. Okay. Oh, the glasses. But like, this guy was a super based, normal Pennsylvania guy who's lived in the state all his life. And he had a relationship contract with his girlfriend before they moved in.
Normal Americans who like aren't affected by the urban monoculture,
and it was
they
cute.
hear this.
It was cute. Like, they framed it like it's a little tongue, and it can be tongue in cheek. And it was a little like they had a cheese clause. There always had to be cheese in the fridge. There was a wine clause where he always had to like give her a glass of wine on Fridays. That's cute. I like that. That's romantic, right? Like, this can be fun. And I encourage people to make it fun, but I also like the fact that this is happening means you also kind of have to do this, because it's a big deal. Is there anything else you'd add in terms of de-radicalizing women? Like, what do you do? What do you do when a woman, like?
I don't think you can de-radicalize. I think you can only prevent.
So yeah, what about these men whose women are like, I'm not going to have more kids unless you.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think you made the wrong choice in who you married. There's not a lot you can do at that point. Like, you gotta walk through eggshells after that, right? Like,
yeah, no. And there's that other friend who shall go nameless, right? But like, we've seen them a couple of times. They don't live in the state, but like,
yeah, I know.
The wife had like keeps saying these things that are like,
like
she's just gone she's gone more and more progressive. Like, she's really gotten into the cult. And like, what is he supposed to do? Like, we keep looking at him like, blink twice if you're okay. Like, because he has to say yes. And like, he'll say whatever his opinion is. And it typically
yes, master. Of course.
Yeah, and then she'll be like, what do you mean that? Like, that's terrible. And then he'll be like, oh no, you're right, I didn't mean that. Like, he has to walk himself back all the time. Like, is there really nothing he can do?
But what you can do if you're like, she did this stuff before they got married.
Just know the warning signs.
Know the warning signs.
We have to take a leaf out of Sean Villain's book.
Not just know the warning signs, but deconvert her before the marriage. You can deconvert. You did this stuff to me. You do the freak out, and then I talk it through with you. I'd be like, okay, let's think through this logically.
Yeah,
right?
like what are you actually producing with this behavior? What are you actually encouraging? What are the outcomes?
Exactly.
Yeah, and like, what do you want to have happen? And do you think this is going to get that? No. Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah, look for the warning flags, take them extremely seriously. I think, yeah, probably the problem with a lot of the people who have found themselves painted into these holes, either in long-term relationships with, or married to women who have become radicalized past the point of no return, they probably received tons of warning signs and never intervened and never said, you know what, I don't.
Yeah, it's not about the warning signs. It's about not intervening when you see the warning signs, not talking it through with them, not being like, hey, you don't like, let's actually, you think all Trump voters are evil? Like, let's talk through this, right? Like, you think all X are Y? Like, can we talk about why you believe this?
Yeah. Okay. And of course, in the comments, weigh in if you have additional advice on this or additional ways that women are radicalizing other women against husbands and boyfriends and men in general. Because I think I've been pretty exhaustive here, but.
Well, no, I mean, the number of men who have easier relationships because their wives watch this podcast.
No, I mean, so many of the wives who watch this podcast are already so based and they are in such good relationships.
True.
And it makes me so happy that they're out there because they comment sometimes and they talk about it. And I'm like, oh man, like this is good. You know, they're out there. Like
You're
good
far
relationships.
more obedient than you are, Simone, by the way. I have heard that they send you emails saying you need to be having more fornication with your husband.
Well, you just make it sound so appealing. You're the one who bolts your door at night.
Yeah, the other night I fell asleep and apparently she came and banged on the door.
Yeah, because Malcolm's like, open invite. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to act on this. And he's like, all right. And then I'm like, and then I call him, doesn't pick up. And I like knock on his door.
I'm a deep sleeper. And
I try to open the door. I'm like, I'll just wake him up. Nope, it's bolted. Because you just don't want to get any, do you?
No, it's because we have a kid living between our two rooms who comes up and sneaks into my room at night.
He really does. And oh my God, how terrible would it be if I like jumped you in the middle of the night and like our kid was like secretly like hiding under the bed. We'd never want to traumatize him.
He loved hiding in my room too.
Yeah. And all he wants to do is just like be as close to you as possible. It's so sweet. But okay, well, I love you. I don't resent you.
Simone. You're amazing.
You're amazing.
Thank you for not being brainwashed by I exposed you to the void. Now we'll see if you can survive.
Yeah. Excited. Simone episodes.
I'm watching a Strange Aeons where she's trying to make a Tumblr like too much vanilla bean extract cake. Her stuff is great. It's so funny.
About the tooth guy?
What?
Painless Dan or something?
What about Tooth Guy? She did an episode on him?
Yeah, I just watched a long Strange Aeons episode too, but it was about a man who extracted teeth in Canada. This is not the one you were watching?
No, not me. I love my subcultures. I was sent one by fans about a game that's like a Gooner game for girls where you date characters in space or something. It was good. I like learning about it. I like learning about weird subcultures.
Oh, I feel like either she or some other YouTuber was promoting it.
Yeah, I watched like a YouTuber video on it,
but it was like an ad, right? It was sponsored.
Yeah, it's promoted a lot on YouTube
content, and like one of them, there's like, and this time he's a space mermaid, like literally, like a space mermaid.
Space mermaid. That could have been what I was watching.
But where are their flippies? If they're freaking.
That's not important. That's not important to.
Apparently, it's not though.
Women of this genre.
Yes.
And I read this New York Times article about Ziz and the Zizian cult that came out of the Rationalists and then murdered a bunch of people. And I'm like, why aren't they writing about me? And Simone's like, they write about you all the time, Malcolm. Can you not have anyone? But one of the lines that somebody said about Ziz, which I thought, is accurate, is they came into the Rationalist and EA community wanting to be one of the main characters. And when they realized they couldn't be, they basically just like picked up their cake and went home, picked up the ball and went home. And that is what created their little cult, because they're just like, no, I'm going to be one of the main characters, even if other people don't care what I have to say and think I'm an idiot. And that is where the Zizians came from. The other thing that I thought was funny is they had this belief, like, you want to hear annoying. So they would go and they would interact with other people on the forums. But
like in the EA forums?
Like in the EA discords and stuff like that. But they were distinct and easily recognizable because they would only use symbols for their names and not like English letters. And because they're all trans, like when you tried to call them out on this, they'd be like, well, as a trans person, like I am, you can't register what I am. That's part of who I am. And so it's transphobic to demand that I use real characters.
That's taking it to a next level.
They also believed that trans women had a unique neurotype that allowed them to better do AI safety work. And that no one.
Oh my God. Like we are the super race for AI safety work. Just like, what's that Star Wars race that clones people? And like, but trans women, they're that
They are the Kaminoans is who you're thinking of. They're like
Oh yeah, Camino. Yes. Okay.
Yes. No, but the trans, I thought that was interesting because it is true. So many of the AI safety screechers I know of are trans women. There is some sort of overlap between AI safety screeching and being a trans woman.
No, there's some overlap between being someone of the female gender in the Bay Area and being trans.
Yes, that's true.
So,
well, and I think, if you're influenceable, to one social meme, you're going to be influenced by another social meme.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you're in any sort of like rationalist or EA space in the San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of the women there are going to be trans, and a lot of the people there also are going to be working in AI safety. Like I don't see that as, it's too confounded. Anyway, I finally set the security code so I can get to the fun stuff now.
Well, what?
I'll do the opening. I mean,
you could say if you saw anything interesting in the comments from the last video that you were working on today.
No, just support. People are ready for trans to be over. Some people think that the left is lying about it and that secretly they're super in support of youth gender medicine still, and they're just saying this. Other people are like, yeah, reality always shows up to the party. Sometimes she's drunk and she's not always nice. She shows up. And I like that. That was a good comment. So we get good comments. Yeah.
All right,
ready? Why are you sneaking?
Because I like sneaking.
Because it's bedtime?
No, because I like sneaking.
This is the only time of day when you ever giggle like this. And it's always when you're supposed to be in bed. Why is that, my friend?
Because I want to be funny.
Because you want to be funny?
Are you funny?
Yes.
Yeah? What are you doing that's so funny?
I'm sneaking into your room.
Sneaking in my room?
Yeah.
While I brush my teeth?
Yeah.
Is that funny?
Yes.
You also want to tell me a joke?
Chicken jockey.
Is this some new youth slang that I don't know about? Okay, tell me another joke.
Chicken hero?
Chicken hero?
No, chicken arrow.
Chicken arrow.
Yeah, like the arrows right up there.
Yeah, those are my arrows.
Yeah, they are hanging.
They go with the bow that's up there, right?
Yeah, where's the string for the bow actually?
The string's on the bow, it's just not strung.
Oh. Good night, Andy.
Is there any advice you have for her to get good dreams?
Seriously. You got a happiness demon.
The happiness demon.
People are like, oh, your kids, how dare you bring someone into this world? They may not want to live in it. And I'm like, okay, but like my kids, I'm not particularly worried about that. I'm taking, get up. Tell Indy advice.
Tell Indy how to sleep well. What does she need to do?
What does she need to do to sleep well? No, what is Indy?
What does Indy need to do to sleep well?
Little demon, stop it. What does Indy need to do to sleep well?
He is possessed. He's possessed. Indy, what's your brother doing? Indy, can you talk some sense into your brother?
Have good dreams, Indy.
Tell her how to have good dreams.
Have good dreams, Indy.
No, go to bed.
Oh my god.